I've been here 1,000 times. I cried these tears, I'm losing my mind. I need to find my way back to you. So take this dirty heart, would you take it from me? So take this dirty heart, I know you know what I need. Hey, burn out the darkness that I let creep in. Break down these walls that I try to defend. Take this dirty heart, would you make it so clean? So clean. You make it so.
Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. You could be doing anything on this Wednesday and you're hanging out with us. And I know you're not going to be sorry because we're going to continue our series called You Good. And we're talking about some unique ways that in this season, God can actually use for good. There's some things that because of quarantine, locked at home, I know things are weird, but maybe there are some things in this season that God can use to change and to make your year the best year yet. And the thing we're going to be talking about tonight is worship. So we're super excited about that. As you can see, we have things a little bit different, and I think it's going to be something that is just going to be really huge for you. We're just going to talk through worship. We're going to explain what it is. We're going to do some worship together. So over the next 30 minutes or so, I just really hope this is so encouraging for you in your week. And here's what I know. I know there's really about 3 kind of groups listening because I've been in the same seats. There are some of you listening who you're skeptical of this whole worship thing. Maybe you haven't been to church a ton. Maybe you were invited by a friend to watch this. Maybe you've been in church, but that singing part is the weirdest piece to you. And I just think that if you will hang with us, we're going to explain what it is, why we do it, and I think that some of the things that may seem weird, God might actually begin to use in a big way in your life. I know there's maybe another group watching, and you love worship. This is your favorite piece. You're at the front of the stage when we usually meet together. And I think that for you, this is going to be an amazing night too. Because maybe even some of the things that you love so much, you don't even understand why. You don't really know some of the pieces to it. And I think we're going to walk through some things, some of the hearts of the leaders up here, that's going to bring a new way of worshiping to your heart and to your life and just kind of reignite you. And then I know there's a third group listening, and I know because I've been in your seat, where maybe you're logging on and you're already about to log off because you don't feel like worshiping. With everything going on right now, if you're honest, you're kind of angry at God. And you're looking at the situation and the last thing you want to do is sing praise. And I just want to encourage you, will you hold on? Will you keep watching and will you lean in? Because I think that God has something for you tonight. And I've been praying specifically for you. And so we're just going to do that. We're going to walk through some songs. We're going to start off with one, and then I'll introduce these guys, and we'll talk through some things. But I know it's going to be a powerful night. And so get alone, get somewhere where you can worship, and we're just going to start off with our first song. So Sam, if you want to take us away.
Ooh,
There's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I
What a way to start off this worship night. Hopefully you engaged and enjoyed that. We have a few more songs coming, but before we do that, I want to introduce this group with me. I know you know some of them, but some of them you might not know, especially if it's your first time joining with us. And then we'll talk through a couple of questions and then get on with the next song. But you guys want to start and introduce yourselves, starting down here to those who might not know you?
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Trey. If you ever attended Velocity in the past, I was the guy tucked away behind the drums, behind the drum cage.
We let him out
Yeah.
today.
For free.
I'm Faith. Hello. I sing. I sing. I also help with worship and like songs like that with Sam.
Right on. I'm Bradley. I'm the student pastor. Sam?
Yeah, my name's Sam. I'm sure most of you probably know me, maybe, possibly. But yeah, I lead the Velocity. I have the privilege of leading the Velocity worship team, and some who are here represented, and some of you guys who may be tuning in. So.
My name is Grace Hudson. We're married. I actually work here on staff as well as the executive assistant, but I love helping out with Velocity because students are the best. I say every chance I get.
I love it. And it's their anniversary, by the way.
Yeah.
So huge shout out to these
2
two.
years!
And look, they're spending it with you. They've been doing anything too, and they're hanging out with you guys. So, hey, we're super excited for tonight. The first question I just want to throw out, you're probably already thinking and asking, is what is worship? And we're just going to have a discussion. We haven't prepared a ton. I just more want you to hear from these guys' hearts who are leading you every week, because there's a reason why they actually do it. And so what do you guys, how would you define worship? What even is it? I know it's a big general question, but what would you say?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go first. To me, worship is just kind of honoring God for who He is, His character. We can, those of us who kind of have been in the faith for a minute, however long, like we can always kind of look back at what God has done in the past in our lives, and we can use that to know that He's going to be faithful again in the future. So it's really, for me, like what worship is at its core is just showing honor and glory, to our Father, to our Creator. Yeah.
and like on a more like personal level for me, if you think like, I phrase the question like, what does worship mean to me? And when I think about that, for me, when I engage in worship, whether it be just singing or in my everyday life, like worship for me means setting my personal preferences and my personal things aside and focusing on God, because I think it's really, we're by nature, we are selfish creatures, I think, like, so don't be too hard on yourself, because if you're a perfectionist, like, people as humans, as flesh, we are very selfish, so like, it's just how we were created to be, and that's why we need God. So for me, when I engage in worship, it's a way for me to set all of that aside and focus on bringing God that glory and like fixing my eyes on Him. So it's literally like an act of me putting myself down and laying myself down and focusing on God. So
That's good.
Going off of what Grace said, I also use worship as a way to connect to God and like tune everything out and like just solely like work on my like connection with Him, like between Him and I, and just to like thank Him and like think about like everything like He's done and what He is doing, and just like focusing on the words and stuff like that, because like whenever you are worshiping, you are honoring God, you are like I don't know how to say it, but like not just I guess putting yourself out there, I guess, in a way, but like I find that to be like, what's it called? I am so bad with
no,
words.
it's fine.
Like real with God, like just like
Vulnerable.
yes, that's exactly the word I was looking for, vulnerable, and yeah, that's what that means.
That's good.
I like a lot what you said. To me, I would define that as just a total act of praise.
That, but we're about to sing another song. What's the song about? Anyone kind of hop in before we sing it so we have some context on where we're going?
Yeah, absolutely. So we sang this song last week as well, for those of you who may have tuned in last week. But this song is called I Am Loved. And we talked about, kind of started out with, describing a little bit about God's character, who He is in our lives, like what He's done. And this song is just a declaration of that. It's basically, just saying that we don't have to be any type of way to come before God. We can approach Him just as we are, and He is delighted in our praise. He's delighted that we would choose to worship Him. This is just an honest song about that, just kind of, again, putting our focus on Him for who He is and what He's done.
Yeah, and I really do like this song too, because like for me, I am a very perfectionist type A personality. And this song, like, immediately when Sam showed it to me, it just, like, it was so, like, comforting to me to know, like, it just reminds you, if you've been a Christ follower for a while, you sometimes forget how much God truly does love you and how much He, like, wants your worship and wants you to have a relationship with Him. So I feel like this song really sets you back in that place and reminds you that, like, at the end of the day, like, I am loved by the Creator of the universe, and, like, but it's like so sweet and so personal too. It feels like, I don't know, it's a beautiful song.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
Let's do it.
So this one is I Am Loved.
untethered. I'll leave it behind and run to my Father. There is no disappointment in your eyes, and there is no shame, there is only pride. Oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. So unreserved, your heart for me. My fear is gone, I am set free. There's nothing to hide, there's nothing to measure. 'Cause I'm your child, and that's all that matters. Yes, it is. There is no disappointment in your eyes. There is no shame, there is only pride. Oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. There is no distance in your embrace, and over again you say, oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. You are changing everything. You are changing everything. I believe it. I receive it. You are changing everything. You are changing everything. You are changing everything. I believe it. I receive it. You are changing everything. You are changing everything. You are changing everything. I believe it. I receive it. You are changing everything. There is no disappointment in your eyes. There is no shame, there is only pride. Oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. There is no distance in your embrace, and over again you say, oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you.
Come on. So good. I don't know about you, but I need that reminder. And I think that as we go into this second piece, that's such a big part of it, because we want to talk about why do we worship. Okay, we know what it is. It's giving your affection, your love, your focus, laying yourself down for something, for someone. But why? Why do you guys worship?
Why do I worship? Well, I don't know. We kind of touched on it a little bit in the last question, but overall, it's just it's supplementary to your faith. You know, I mean, you can worship all you want, but there's more to faith than that. So it's just to me, it's just an integral piece, kind of diversifying the way I praise, the way I pray, the way I just talk to God, and it's another avenue to connect with Him.
I think for me, you know, because there's worship, you know, with music and like what we're doing tonight, but there's so many different ways we can worship. Like I worship, you know, in the way that I serve. Centerpoint serve my local church, and I'm just because, you know, I think we're drawn to action, and it's on me to like put action to what I believe, and my faith I can put into action by serving God, and I'm worshiping God through that. And even when I'm singing praises to God, it helps me really like communicate with God and really have moments with just me and God. So I worship so I can show my love for God, show my praise to God, and show just connect with God in that way. So
Yeah, I think one thing I really believe in is every time that we make it a point to have an encounter with our Creator, with Jesus. Every single time that we do that, I believe that it's an opportunity for us to feel Him in a completely new way. No matter how long we've been in faith. I mean, I've been a believer for just about as long as I can remember, since I was a kid. But I still engage in worship in one way or the other, on a regular basis, because just because of who God is, and not to get anything from it. Like we don't worship as a way to hope our prayers are answered or anything like that. It's just a matter of like who God is and what He's done for us, and again, like she's saying, and like we're all kind of saying, is realigning our perspective, whether in the good times or the bad times. Just be surrounded by God and who He is.
That's so good. It reminds me of this verse in Philippians where Paul's writing, and he's writing to Christians, and he says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, everything that's excellent and praiseworthy, think about such things."
Mm-hmm.
And he's encouraging them to do this, because I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'm a what-if thinker. So I'm always, what if, worst case scenario, but what if this happens, or what if that happens, what if this doesn't work out? And I get so focused on what's happening around me and the possibility of negative circumstances that worship for me takes me out of that place, and it helps me think about what's true and right, what I can actually bank on, not what ifs, but God's promises of who He is. And so sometimes I need to take a break from my crazy brain and just listen to a worship song that is words of God's truth of who He is, and it brings me to that spot of going, okay, now I'm thinking about what's excellent and what's praiseworthy.
I agree. I think that we, as humans, we need that reminder. You know what I mean? Like we're all imperfect, and just making it a point to do that. I think, I don't know. I think that we benefit from it every time that we do.
So good. And I think that, too, this is for you. If you're sitting right here going, I don't feel like I want to praise because of what's happening in my life. I don't feel that need to. I would encourage you, like Paul encouraged his audience, even when you don't feel it, maybe you need to sing it.
yeah.
Maybe before you can feel it, you need to think it, and you need to say it, and you need to get it out. And I think that maybe that's the tool that God's going to use to get you to begin to feel it, to pull your eyes off of what's going on and onto His truth. And so as we sing this next song, I just want to encourage you, maybe even if you don't feel it, maybe you need to sing it. And in this next moment, think about the words we're going to sing. Think about who God is. And I think that God's going to move in a powerful way in your heart. Do you guys want to say anything about this next song before we start?
It's a banger.
Yeah, you go. No, I was just gonna say. I mean, this song is. It's different than a lot of. I guess like modern worship songs, like lyrically, and that's one of the things that's honestly so awesome about it. Is that it's a true, honest, song of praise, song of worship. But it's honestly it's straight from Scripture. So anybody who has spent any time in the Word of God, these verses are, and kind of what this overarching theme of this song is just kind of God's provision and His blessing on our lives. So that's kind of what this song's about.
Awesome.
Lord bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you.
Okay, last question, then we have one more song. And this one I think is one that I used to ask a ton. How do we worship? You know, because I think that sometimes we think it's just singing. And are there other ways to worship? It's obviously not just this, but what are some other ways that we can worship? What are some ways that you guys worship personally?
Like Grace said in her other thing, she said another way to worship is through serving. So like by volunteering and stuff like that. So I worship by doing this and helping out just where I can and all that stuff. You can also worship through like prayer, just by putting God first and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing that I heard before from a pastor one time is that in scripture as well. Pastor didn't come up with it, but but yeah, scripture tells us. Obviously, any of us who believe in Jesus and what He's done for us, we're kind of here in 2020 in a lot of ways to be Jesus to people. You know what I mean? To be His hands and feet here on earth. And basically, it's kind of like old school, but just any time that we make ourselves have a focus on God, whatever it is that we're doing, whether anything in our lifestyle, just bringing glory to Him, whatever that may be, outside of just music, I think.
Absolutely. You mentioned lifestyle. I think that's really important. My opinion on worshiping in other ways is that the best and also most challenging way is through your daily actions. To be Christian means to be Christ-like, and so a lot of times worshiping is just making the right decision in a spur-of-the-moment kind of call. And that's just so hard to do sometimes. And a lot of times in hindsight, you're always knocking yourself for it. But having that mentality and being aware of it, whether it's after the fact, or in the moment, it's just super important. And it's good to build on yourself that way.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I love that. It's being aware of His presence all the time and every day. Everything then becomes worship. That's awesome. Now, what about, and this used to be a question I asked all the time. I was the kid, grew up in church up front, hands raised every single week, and then it wasn't until this one Wednesday night that I explained what are we doing when we raise our hands? When we open our hands up or we close our eyes, or you see people bow on their face, what is that when it comes to worship? Any thoughts on that, especially for those asking hey, that part's weird, why do we do this?
Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit. I am a very enthusiastic worshiper. It's kind of funny you say that happened because that was me too when I was in student ministry, new to faith, and I see people raise their hands and I'm what's that all about? But for me, I've learned it's not about what you're doing on the outside, but in your mind, it's posturing yourself to connect with God, to receive from God, to worship God, and that looks different for everybody. There is no scripture that says you have to raise your hand when you worship. And I've seen this time and time again, whatever feels most true to you and yourself. There's some people I know, biggest worshipers I know, but when they're worshiping, their eyes are closed and they're singing to God quietly, and that's how they choose to worship. For me, I'm very exuberant with my worship just because I'm a passionate person, and that's how I like to express my worship. There's no right way or wrong way as long as your heart is true and you're choosing to not think about what's going on around you, not think about your life, but really choosing to engage with God in that moment and, just whatever's most authentic. So there's no right way or wrong way. Raising your hands is just how a lot of people feel comfortable connecting with God. And like I said, it's literally some people find it helpful to posture yourselves, help you kind of zone in on what God's doing. But there's no right way or wrong way.
Yeah, and I think one thing too that I've heard before, God is our Father, right? And you guys may have heard it put this way before, but what does a little kid do when they need help from their parents? They reach up to the sky Mom, Dad, please pick me up, please help me. To me, it honestly is a physical sign of surrender. To say that I'm not enough. I tried to handle this on my own, and it's not working. And so, and for me, I've been involved in a worship team of some sort for a long time, and I'm kind of a little bit the opposite of grace as far as, you know, like body language and things like that. But it is one of those things where, like, I challenge you to try it. It might not be your thing or whatever, but just kind of reaching out, like, it's a sign of surrender, like what she's saying, as far as shifting our posture, that, you know, God is our Father, and that He's going to be there to pick us up no matter what.
Mm-hmm. That's so good.
Yeah. Sorry. The first time I actually ever rose my hands, like, fully, like, all the way, was, like, during Velocity, like, this one time, so shout out to Velocity. But I had always been, like, not, like, ashamed or anything, but, like, I know I don't seem like it, but sometimes I do feel a little bit, like, timid, like, shy, but I've always, like, held my hands like this, and for some reason in my heart I felt like that wasn't enough. Not saying that, like, that's not enough for you, like, but, like, for me and, like, my worship, like, I remember, like, the first time I, like, actually, like, raised my hands in worship, and I just, like, it made me feel like I was just giving Him, like, all my praise, all my love, and all that, and in a way I was surrendering as well, because there's plenty of times where I'll just, like, throw my hands up and I'll just cry, because, like, I just feel His presence, and I just feel everything, and, like, I feel like as I'm doing that, I'm just connecting to, like, the words that are, like, that I'm singing, and I'm actually paying attention to, like, what these words mean to me, and, like, what they, like, just mean as a whole. So
That's good.
It's interesting in church trying to see people put their hands up. You know, we're listening to music, and it's like the action they're taking when they're listening to worship music. But, like, a lot of times people dance, you know, and not everybody likes to dance. People are shy. Like, you've ever been to, like, an event and trying to pull, like, your sister around. She doesn't want to dance, so she's sitting in her chair. So there's other ways to, you know, put your hands up, too. You know, I kind of talked about your daily life and things like that. But, you know, in church, you always hear about, and you always hear singing about giving things up to God. And so, you know, throughout your day, if there's something you're struggling with, you know, you can mentally sit down and pray and just, like, literally give it up to God. And I think putting your hands up is just kind of a physical, you know, version of that, kind of how Sam was saying.
Yeah, and for me, it goes back to that verse of, it helps me think about what I'm doing. I think when I pray, or when I get alone with God, and when I'm worshiping, if I can kind of open my hands up and go, God, I'm ready to receive you, there's something about the physical that helps the mental. There's even studies that show, like, if you stand in, like, a power pose before, like, an interview or something, you'll actually feel more powerful. And I think there's some truth to that, of going, hey, if we will start just going, hey, I want you, Daddy, like, I'm open to whatever you have for me, like, hands are up, I'm surrendered, that it begins to, like, bring your mind to that space too.
That's
So
good.
yeah, I love that. We're gonna close out with one last song. You guys want to tell us a little bit about what this one's about?
This is a crowd favorite, I think.
Crowd favorite?
Yeah, we've done this quite a bit. Faith, is there anything you want to say?
I feel like this song is about receiving God. And the title, Touch of Heaven, it's about wanting to be with Him and, like, be a part. Sorry, I'm really bad at explaining things. Sorry.
It's kind of like the success, like the pinnacle of worship and praise is, like, actually feeling His praise and feeling His presence, and, like, literally, like you said, being there with Him in that moment. Just everything about that.
It's just like a declaration to say, like, you know, all I want is this. I want this, more of this, a touch of heaven. And it's, like, it's a really cool declarative song to sing to God.
Yeah, it's a lot of what we've all been saying, but this is, like, an honest, true, like, God, please meet us here as we, you know, engage in this. Like, we want to experience you, we want to feel you, and it's a request, if anything else, of that. So it's a really awesome song, and yeah, so it's called Touch of Heaven for sure.
I definitely challenge you guys to, like, try to connect with the words and, like, think about what they mean, because there is a line where it says, like, I open up my heart to you, and, like, all I want. You guys know.
You homie, you don't want to put your hands up right now. You know, another good thing that I started off doing was just kind of opening them up. It's, like, really subtle, and, like, I mean, obviously there's nothing to be ashamed about either way, but, you know, it's kind of like, I guess, a learning curve for some people, really, when you just open your hands up or put your hands out like that. So.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. Sorry, I know we're about to start a song, but just real quick, because Bryant talked about that in his relationship goals series in February, and he was talking about, like, you know, your earthly relationships, but he was talking about the same thing. Like if you feel like that is like, it's hard to not feel that surrender when you have your hands there. Like you're saying, putting the physical with the emotional, like literally something simple like that can help you find that right space. So that's just reminding me, because he was saying like in his relationship, if he feels like he's getting like sometimes like tense, he'll just do like this, and that's like an act of surrender. And so even if it's like small and subtle, it's like a baby step. So that's really cool. Connection.
That's awesome. I love it. So yeah, find that place, posture yourself however you feel comfortable, and engage with us over this next one.
How I live for the moments where I'm still in your presence. All the noise dies down. Lord, speak to me now.
Hey, we just want to say thanks for worshiping with us. I hope that this blessed you in a big way. I know it did us up here. And we're just so thankful that you're a part of Velocity, that you're a part of what God's doing. And we want you to know that you have people around you who love you, who are for you, who are in this with you. And so I just want to encourage you, if God did something in your life tonight, don't keep that to yourself. We have Zoom groups happening all throughout the week of leaders and other friends who are just saying, hey, we want to be here to walk this life together. We want to be here for you. And so on our Instagram bio, you can find the links to all of our Zoom groups. But please, please, please be a part of those. Guys, we're just so thankful. We hope you have an amazing week. Keep following along with us, and we'll see you soon.